Hello, singers, and welcome to another episode of Tenor Talk. This time around, we're going to go in depth with the concept Laringe Stretta, the narrowing of the larynx. What is it, and why can it help you in your singing? This is a concept that I myself have taken quite a bit of time researching and going in depth with it, as well as integrating it into my daily routine, my training, my practice, my singing, and I have to say, I have gotten some wonderful results, and I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you'll understand why. In addition, stay till the end of the video as we have an exciting announcement regarding this YouTube channel. So let's get right into it. What is Laringe Stretta, and how can it help you when it comes to your singing, specifically for amplification, for resonance, for singing in stage with an orchestra, classical and operatic music? So let's start by killing a myth here. Pound for pound, or I should say decibel for decibel, volume versus volume, the orchestra will always beat you. You do not beat the orchestra by singing louder. You don't win by pushing or forcing more air. You definitely don't win by squeezing or grunting or forcing or trying to be with brute force more voluminous. If that was the case, every weightlifter would be a wonderful opera singer. But as we know, the great singers never used brute force when it came to singing. No. They were very clever, and they knew that singing didn't require as much muscle and force. It required more of a finesse and access to a higher harmonic frequency. So I want you to take this journey with me. Close your eyes. And I want you to picture that you're on stage. In front of you, there's a pit for an orchestra. And behind the pit of the orchestra, you have a great big hall full of people, full of audience. The orchestra pit itself can fit 80 to 90 musicians. And as you hear the orchestra play it all at once, I want you to picture this wall of sound, this thick wall of sound being built in front of you. If you try to sing against this wall of sound, as much force and volume as you think that you are creating, as much space and heft as you think you are creating, the orchestra will bury you if you try to use force and pushing to try to be heard over that wall or orchestra. Not only will you not be heard, but you're gonna have a day of laborful and effortful singing. That's not going to feel very nice at the end of the show. In decibel terms, an orchestra can play anywhere between 110 to 120 decibels when playing all at once, all together. Even a big dramatic soprano or a big held-in tenor, beefy voice can perhaps reach those numbers 112 decibels, 115, but they're going to reach that perhaps with one climactic note, one or two climactic notes. The rest of their singing is going to be at a much lower decibel rate than the orchestra. Most of us that sing in our lower range, while we're doing a recitativo, we're probably somewhere around the 90 decibel range, the low 100s. One big climactic note might take us to 110, but that's it. Meanwhile, the orchestra consistently is playing at a higher decibel range than we are singing. So decibels really don't matter. So how is it that some opera singers can still be heard very clearly, very resonantly, and can cut through an orchestra? Well, in our visualization, I want you to think that big, thick wall of sound has a gap. There's a window, an opening, where there is no wall. You can just hop right through it. Most of you might already know what I'm talking about. The frequency, which is how we measure sound, frequency and hertz, of an orchestral sound dissipates around the 2000 frequency mark. That means that when we make a sound, when we're speaking, when we're singing, when anything makes a sound, it has harmonics and frequencies all throughout a large range. Depending on the instrument, that sound will be heard at a specific range and will dissipate in other ranges. An orchestral sound is very strong. That big, thick wall is very strong between 0 all the way to 2000 hertz. After that, it dissipates, which means that there is a small gap in which if we tune our singing to that frequency range, which we call the singer's formant, from 2000 to 3000, 3200 frequency hertz, without brute force, we can cut through the orchestra quite easily, and the human ear catches the human voice, that frequency range. So we can have a very easy, effortless day of singing as long as we are in tune with that frequency. We don't constantly have to battle a wall of sound. This is where Laringe Stretta comes in. Laringe Stretta literally means a narrowed larynx. But if you interpret that as squeezing, you've already lost. Let's clear this up. Narrowing the larynx does not mean closing the open throat position, rising the larynx, squeezing, forcing, grunting. None of that is what Laringe Stretta actually is. This concept comes from the Italian bel canto and early versions of Verissimo tradition. So long before spectrograms and frequency in hertz, teachers back then used to use terms like suono in maschera, the sound in the mask, which again, a misinterpret idea. It does not mean shoving sound forward or in the nose, but feeling the vibrations of the sound in a very frontal, present, pharyngeal manner. Acciaio nella voce, steel in the sound, a sense of steel. Filo di voce, a string, a thread in the voice. They were describing acoustical focus, not muscular tension. So you see, singing is like whistling. It's not a brute force action. It's more like a whistle. Have you ever tried to force a whistle? It won't come out. Doesn't matter how much air and force and muscularity I try to force, it won't come out. But if I find just the right amount of space, with just the right amount of air making contact with the lips and with that cavity that I have created, there comes a laser-like, easy whistling sound. Singing is like this. We need to start to associate singing with more coordinational development than just pure muscular strength, brute force development. Vocal pedagogues like Howard Austin helped clarify this concept. One of his quotes reads like this: narrowing must happen in the vocal tract, not through brute force at the vocal folds. Again, this is where singers get into trouble. They hear the word narrowing and they start to pull the tongue back, jam the larynx upwards, clamp the throat. Narrow! No. I want you to think of your voice as we open the throat and create a spatial cavity, a chamber of resonance, a dome. I want you to think of it like this tube, this valve. Many of us have a garden hose in our home. If I open the water pressure through the garden hose valve, and this is my garden hose, water will come out at a certain pressure and dissipate. However, if I grab the same garden hose and I just narrowed the nozzle at the end of it, without me increasing the water pressure, the same amount of water pressure, just because I squeezed the nozzle, shoots out much more pressure-like, much more laser-like. In other words, that stream becomes focused. Nothing gets strained. So I want you to think of your vocal tract like that garden hose, or like this valve, this tube. We open the throat by raising the velum, the soft palate, lowering the larynx, and keeping this very flexible. It's not a rigid opening and this stays locked. The palate raises, but it does drop and raise, drop and raise, drop and raise. In other words, this is a kinetic motion. It vibrates. The larynx as well lowers, yes, but it's not caged or compressed or stuck. It vibrates in its lowered position. So we have an open throat that is constantly kinetic, vibrating, loose, free. It's not this. And obviously it's not closed. We open the throat. There's our dome. There's our tube. Now, that open space, that cathedral, that dome, you have to think of it as directionless. It doesn't have a direction. That's just singing with an open throat in a breathy manner, which is a good tool to use to isolate the concept of an open throat. But when we're talking about the finished product, singing with just a big space, a big cathedral space, and trying to take that up and down is going to be laborful, and it's not going to have a sense of direction. Might sound big, beefy, voluminous, manly, but that sound is more likely to get buried in an orchestra. I have taken my big open throat sound and I'm trying to bring that up all the way to my high register. It's fat. It's weightful. It's like dragging 100 pounds with me. I can do it, but it's not something that I want to sing 3 hours of an opera with. However, if I think about my vocal tract opening like a valve, a tube, oval shape, dome shape. This is why we say that all the vowels are sung through the tube or through an O or an U. And then I narrow the nozzle almost like an internal bite, not a bite with your teeth, but an internal one, starting from your uvula and back. And when I bite, filo, string. So you're not narrowing the entire throat. The pharynx stays open. The soft palate stays lifted. Jaw stays released, relaxed. Dumb jaw. The neck stays passive. What's happening is that the narrowness is happening in the epilaryngeal tube. This is the small funnel just above the vocal fold. So if this is my larynx, the vocal folds sit around here. There's a little excess funnel right above them that can do this action. This little narrowing of the nozzle. For those of you that like visualization, think of a cathedral, the open throat space, the chamber of resonance, the dome, and think that in that space, there's a spotlight. Or there is a direction now, a thin direction. Big space, sharp focus. Now, this is something that we're all culpable with. We all vocalize with open vowels. Like ah, o, It feels comfortable. It feels free. It feels safe. It feels open, especially for those of you still practicing the open dome, the open throat space. That's why we sound pretty darn good when we warm up. But then as soon as we switch to repertoire and we have closed vowels, as well as consonants and other things, we start to freak out. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel as free as when we were vocalizing. Singing an aria is just much tougher. Open throat without focus is like shouting in a cathedral. Huge space, but zero direction. Use your closed vowels. I know we try to run away from them because we feel that they choke us or they tempt us to collapse our open space. But the E, the E, the U Closed and semi-closed vowels force acoustical focus. This is why you have fantastic singers like Salvatore Fisichella, which if you have seen in our lesson, as well as really any lessons that he has with any student, one of the first things he always has them do is sing nay. Nay, 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 nay. Now, for the person who doesn't know the information that I'm giving you, it kind of sounds that he's trying to get you to squeeze or close your throat. Nay, nay, This is not what he's talking about, and this is not what the narrowing of the larynx is, the Laringe Stretta concept. What he's talking about, as well as many other Golden Age singers who used these proverbs like Caruso, Gilli, they are trying to encourage this epilaryngeal narrowing. They're trying to prevent the throat from collapsing, keeping the tongue forward and relaxed, and they're trying to get you to, like a whistle, tune in to the singer's formant and to that frequency range that allows us to leap over the orchestral wall. So next time you're thinking about E, E, or nay, nay, or N-G position vowels, don't think of them with a closed throat. Ne. It's the opposite. Open. Open the dome. But you have to think the dome as one independent concept. That's one position. The vowel, the closed vowel, the position of the narrowness of the larynx can't live here. If not, we would be singing ingolato. Oh, my vowel is in the space. No, fake, artificial. No resonance. We want the vowel to live in a different position. We want to find the vibrations, the suono in maschera, with an open throat. So next time you think nay, don't think of it as a grunt, a force with a high larynx. Open the throat. Use all the concepts that I have mentioned in my previous videos about the sigh, the moan, the cry, the tilt, all those things, and use it to find clarity and focus with an open throat position. Nay, nay, nay. Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. Use the cry. Use the tail. Anything that gives you looseness and freedom in the sound while maintaining an open throat and having focus. Find your ah, your o, your open vowels through a closed vowel. So I'm finding my ah through that narrowness, that focus. Obviously, we need to still think that all the vowels live inside the tube, the open throat position, the dome, the vowel. We can't sing eh. That's not in the tube. So that we don't spread E vowels. We don't collapse. We don't have the larynx coming right back up and choking you. We have to maintain this open throat tilt position and find direction through there. Stay in the tube. Sing all your vowels through an O position, but give them focus. The N consonant will always give you correct vibration if we have open throat position. Create the dome. NG. NGA. NGE. NGO. To give us the vibration here that we need. Not so much no vibration. Presence, frequency. And we have that inner bite, or the inner smile that so many Italians talk about. The internal smile. It's not a smile with your mouth. Your mouth plays no part. Relax it. Internally. Find the smile. Find the height. It's almost like snoring. Deep snore. Now take away the snore and breathe in that position. You find a height, a depth and height. And obviously you apply all the concepts we talked about with the appoggio, the air flowing. The air has to speed up in velocity as we go higher. Lower notes require lower velocity. Higher notes require higher velocity. Nothing about singing is static. As we have mentioned, the soft palate rises, but also drops and rises, drops and rises, drops and rises, drops and rises. Larynx vibrates in its lower position. The body needs to be relaxed. Inhaling, we expand. Exhaling, we contract. The air needs to flow, making contact with the vocal cords that are vibrating. As it makes contact and it's flowing, it's bouncing off that dome that we have created, that open throat space before it's being released. So everything is one big vibration. It's not static. It's not. It has pulse, pulse, pulse. Like a flutter, like when people are saying, oh my God, I'm so cold. I'm so cold. That little flutter, that's almost like very quick yodels. That's the freedom of release of the sound. Apply that to the singing with adduction in that high, lifted, deep place with the narrowing, with the closed vowel. Flow. Spin, 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 spin. This is the idea where teachers get the idea of spin. Airflow must make contact with the cords to accompany the concept of Laringe Stretta, to accompany the concept of opening the throat. If we do all these concepts, but we don't have the motor, the engine, which is airflow, then you're never going to actually see results and progress with these concepts because you're missing the flow of air, the water pressure. This is air pressure 101. We're talking about when you're doing air rockets, plumbing, any sort of water pressure, air pressure science. It's all the same. Our instrument is a wind instrument. It has to do with a sac that traps air like a chimney blower. That's our lungs. And then that same air being compressed through a narrow opening. It's going, it's flowing, it's not stuck, it's flowing. Same idea. Okay? Put in practice. What can you do to start to get this sensation? The first thing you can do is prepare the space. That's always rule number one, the onset. No sound for the first step. Jaw loose, unhinged. The dumb jaw, not Popeye. Gaga, 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 gaga. No Popeye. Relaxed and slightly back. Tongue forward. Sitting right beneath the bottom of the teeth. And just relax it. It's numb. Shot of anesthesia. Soft palate now gently lifted. As if breathing in that snore or breathing in that gulping sound effect. As if you're drinking. Inhale that G. Feel the soft palate rising, being lifted. The neck, free. Give yourself little massages to encourage freedom. Everything about the voice is a piece of rubber. Have you ever tried to stretch a thick, tense piece of rubber or rigid piece of rubber? It won't. It's hard. Think of it more as a stretchy, pliable, manageable material. Stretches. That's what our vocal cords need. They stretch as we ascend. This is the first step. Opening the cathedral. You can think of it as a backwards cone where the fat part of the cone is behind you and it concentrates and nozzles into your mouth. There's the cathedral. Now, on a mid-range pitch, start a M hum. Feeling the pulse. And slowly slide into an N. All happening internal. If you've collapsed the space, it won't work. You're gonna feel choke already. As you experiment and play around with this, feel the vibrations in this area, in your cheekbones almost, or the mustache region. The buzz behind the lips, cheekbone vibrations, zero throat pressure. No throat pressure. All airflow making contact, vibrating here. If it pinches, stop, you're squeezing. If it's breathy, refocus. No. Lift. It's a constant focus of what's happening internally. You constantly need to be focused on the dome being lifted, height, and depth. Don't collapse. Now, sing a neigh on a 5-note scale, finding that vibration. Medium soft. No need to go full volume. Don't go. If anything, don't think about volume at all. The throat does nothing. It's like a whistle. Find the right coordination. Nine, 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 nine. You're tightening the hose of a nozzle. You're not turning up the pressure of the faucet. Nine, 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 nine. Nine, 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 nine. Nine, 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 nine. Keep it nice and relaxed, and it still has that feeling of sigh, sob, crying. Nine, 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 nine. Let the resonance guide you. Feel the buzz here while maintaining the dome. Let it shift by itself. Allow things to happen. If you feel like you have to do a change or a gear change, you're already doing something wrong. You're already trying to control the sound. It's funny. When I see people in a party or in a celebration or riding a roller coaster, first thing they do is start hollering. Woo! Woo! They're not even realizing that as they do that, they're probably singing high Fs, high As, high whatever. In falsetto, of course, but they have no issue reaching those notes. But when I tell them to sing, or when you have them sing, they don't access that part of their range at all. Why? Why? That's exactly what we need to access that part of our range. Woo! Use that as a siren to find more cricothyroid engagement, more looseness in the sound, inviting more head voice. We need that as we ascend to keep the sound less brute force, less thick, allowing the chords to stretch and thin while finding this narrowness. Very Mickey Mouse-like. Good, that's in falsetto. Now find the adduction and narrow the larynx in that position. It feels when done correctly. And it has a focus. It has a brilliance to it. It has squillo, singer's formant as well. Using the ne to find your open vowel so that we don't just sing with the cathedral. Directionless, just the space. Open the space, find the adduction. Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. Keeping the pause. The air flowing, the spin, the vibration, the relaxation to it as you are singing this scale. Find the the o through the closed vowels. Another exercise you can do is bring your repertoire, pick a phrase from your repertoire, sing it in nay, 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 then sing the text all on the same pitch, same dynamic, and see if the ring, the buzz here, suono in maschera, disappears or doesn't. Non ti scordare di me. Let's take that phrase. Nay, 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 nay. Now the words in that buzz. Non ti scordare di me. Non ti scordare di me. Not letting the consonants and words and pitch variations corrupt and collapse this concept. Non ti scordar. Stopping the throat or the airflow. No. We breathe in. We exhale. We are one. We're an instrument that plays in phrases. So as soon as we exhale, the motor starts. It should not stop until we stop singing. Take a breath and inhale, prepare the onset, and get ready for the next phrase. Nothing like non ti scordar di me. You vibrated in one note if you did that. Non ti scordar di me. Another exercise. The squeak. I have talked about this in some of my other videos. Finding the filo, the string in the voce, in the voice. The thread with an open throat. Height, dome, space. Using a vocal fry to find that filo, that string. Starting from a vocal fry. Take that vocal fry up through the space of the dome, through the trajectory of the dome or the yawn. What do I mean by the trajectory? As I mentioned before, nobody yawns like this. Ah! No, they yawn like this. Follow that trajectory. Don't go, ah! Okay? Here's the key point. You're just taking the vocal fry up. There's a point where a vocal fry ceases to be a vocal fry and just becomes adduction. It's the nature of vocal fry. It can't go past a certain point. So don't try to add more adduction. You're just going to thicken it. Open the throat. And with a vocal fry, pick a note, whatever the note is. This isn't falsetto. This is falsetto. breathier, looser, no adduction, no firm adduction. This string, this squeak, this thread connects us to the full voice. So if you have found this, congratulations. All you have to do to get to the full voice is just speed up the velocity of the air. That's it. Look at this. No cracking, no yodeling, because we are connected by filo, by string. If it was falsetto, it would have been a crack. Which is also a great tool to do to find the quality of falsetto when connecting to the full voice through a yodel or a crack. Yeah, but what we're talking about here is how this vocal fry, this light adduction, almost like a light cough, is all we need to connect to the breath, to connect to the full voice. And then after that, speed up the air. Not push, but speed it up. Finish the exercises with a gentle hum or a lip trill. Remember, associate singing with pleasure, not pain. Throwing the voice around is what I like to call this. Sloppy, sighful. Let's look at some quotes. Even the great Franco Corelli from the Melocchi school. He talks about the voice must be like steel wrapped in velvet. Steel, the filo, wrapped in the acoustical space. The velvet, the dome. Giuseppe Di Stefano, if you push, you die. Short, accurate. Enrico Caruso, the voice must spin, not shout. There are the very famous Caruso scales, which begins with an open vowel, and the higher he ascends, it ends with a closed vowel, finding the narrowing. So to wrap this up, the final image of Laringe Stretta is not squeezing the throat. It is a laser-like quality of sound inside an open cavity, inside a cathedral, that dome that you create when you open the throat. It is a nozzle, not a pump. You are putting a thread through the eye of a needle. The eye of the needle, of course, being the space, the dome, and you're putting a thread through it. Just enough adduction that it is a clear, connected sound without labor, but not too little that the sound becomes breathy or we switch to falsetto. When you do this correctly, high notes stop becoming enemies. Projection starts to become more effortless. And the orchestra, that big orchestra wall that seems to be unbreakable, you start to feel that it moves around you. You are hopping through that gap, that cluster of 2,000 to 3,200 frequency hertz. The singer's formant. So that's it for today. That's an in-depth, insightful look at the concept of Laringe Stretta, which has been such an enigma to many of you. And I have to admit, for me as well, always thinking that it meant some sort of laryngeal squeeze. We understand now that it does not. I hope that this has helped many of you. I hope that you have found this information useful and interesting and that you can apply it to your warm-ups, to your singing, to your repertoire. As always, these are my findings, my experience, my knowledge and wisdom that I try to share to many of you. You could take it or you can leave it. No one is forcing you to do these things. Play around with them, experiment with them, see if they work for you. Give them their respectable time and discipline that they deserve. There is no way to speed this process up. There's no sing better quickly exercise. It takes time, practice, and diligence. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please give a like and subscribe to the channel. Become a member! Members form an integral part of this community, and because of that, they hold benefits that other subscribers don't. You can see a list of those benefits if you click the link in the description below when it comes to YouTube members. Now, if you have stayed to the end of this video, you're probably wondering what the exciting announcement is for the YouTube channel. I'm very excited to say that this channel will now be turned into a Tenor Talk podcast. So instead of me screaming information and singing tips at you, it's going to be a two-way and at times even a three-way conversation between me, a guest, and when we do live streams, members of the channel who will be able to ask questions and interact with us so that you feel that you get your questions answered instead of me putting up a video revolving around a theme that I think fit. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited to chat to you guys directly with a guest. So every week we're going to ask members to submit questions, and during live streams, you're able to type it up live as the podcast is being live streamed. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Keep practicing, keep studying. As always, you know the drill. The work continues. Ciao, ciao for now.